Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Chosen Scoop. I'm Jim Luff. Joining me today is Peter Reed, one of the owners of Reed Sporting Goods in Bloomington, Illinois. Welcome to The Chosen Scoop, Pete.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, before we get into the rich history of your business, and I know it's evolved over the years, can you give us a little overview of your business as it exists today? What does Reed Sporting Goods do?
Well, we basically are a team dealer, so we service. Actually, at the moment, we're a baseball, softball specialty store almost because the majority of our business is in those two sports. We do a lot with soccer, some volleyball, and other team sports, but at the moment, baseball and softball are our biggest sports because the kids are playing that almost all year round now.
That's awesome. Now, I want to talk about the fascinating long history of your company, which dates back to 1856. Now, I don't think that I've ever interviewed anybody from any company that has a history that rich and that deep. And Pete and I have talked offline, so I have a feeling I'm not going to get too many more words in on this interview when we get started with this. But Pete, tell us the story. I know that I believe it was your great grandfather that began the business.
That's correct. It was my great grandfather that started the business, but it was my great great grandfather that moved here from Philadelphia in 1856. So
And
that's
and
where
his okay.
that's where the 1856 date comes from. The
All right.
store
And
the store actually started, as you can see on my shirt here, in 1884.
all right.
All
So
right.
they moved there to Bloomington, and your great great grandfather's name is actually Benjamin Franklin Reed,
That's
correct?
that's correct. Yes.
Love it. Okay, you go ahead with your story from here. So they moved to Bloomington, and what happens next?
Well, they both ended up working for the local newspaper, the Pantograph, and in 1884, it was actually W.O. Davis that formed a separate business that was wholesale books and tabloids, pens, pencils, the kind of stuff way back then. And then about I guess it was 10 to 11 years later, my great grandfather and two other guys bought it from W.O. Davis, um, and from there we sold about anything that you could get your hands on. We sold office supplies, sporting goods, toys, dolls, fireworks before they became illegal. So yeah, we sold a little bit of everything until I guess it would be 1972. We became strictly sporting goods. When I guess my dad had to let his mom go. It was on third floor with the toys, and his wife go. It was on the first floor with the books and office supplies. And we became strictly sporting goods in 1972.
And are you still in the same physical location with the multi-stories?
Actually, we've had a couple of branch stores in the mall and one on campus at Illinois State, but what I refer to as corporate headquarters has only been in 3 locations since 1884. In 1951, we moved from a location on Center Street over to Main Street. It was only about two and a half blocks away. And then we were there from 1951 until 1981. And that's when I came to work for the company. And we moved to where we are today at 812 IA Drive.
All right. And I heard mention somewhere in this rich history of a board game being manufactured. Who built the board game? Tell us a little bit about the board game.
Yeah, there's 2 board games involved here. Actually, my great grandfather, William Benjamin Reed, but he went by WB all the time, WB Reed. And the WB Reed and Company was a guy by the name of Lincoln and a guy by the name of White. Lincoln left a year later, but White stayed on. And it was actually the business was called Reed and White from what have been about 1897 until White was bought out around World War One. But before that, Reed and White had a game board company, and they made carom boards, which were they were a square board with pockets in the corners. Had something like billiards and a bunch of those were built. So way back when, there was a Reed and White game board company in Bloomington, Illinois. Now,
Okay.
I invented a game called the buckboard, and I lived under a buckeye tree for a while, and that's one that is still out there today and just kind of getting off the ground. It's a lot of fun. You roll a buckeye down this board and score by getting it in a small hole or a bigger hole, and yeah, keep your eyes open.
And is that something you carry in your sporting goods store, or that's available elsewhere?
Well, it's not really available anywhere right now. It's still,
Okay.
but I've sold over a couple hundred of them. I mean, I just keep. I almost went on the Shark Tank one time with it, and they had a provisional patent on it for a while, and so there's a lot of red tape going in.
All right. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's a great time waster.
Well, I think that cell phones and Facebook became part of the biggest time wasters in America, or in the world, really, once they were invented. So I have to ask, you run a sporting goods store. Are you an avid sports player yourself? And if so, what sport do you play?
I played tennis in high school and college, but I'm not very big. I'm only 5'6" and 150 at one time, maybe. So, as a kid, I played every sport there was, but by the time you get to junior high and you're the smallest kid in the class, you didn't make the basketball team. And
Yeah.
so my mom took me out with a tennis racket one day, and I kind of caught on. And yeah.
And I know that you do sports and you lean towards baseball, but do you carry tennis rackets in your store today?
It's interesting because we don't, but at one time we did. And before I came to work there, I worked at the Evergreen Racket Club, which is an indoor tennis facility. So I was a tennis teacher for probably 10 to 12 years of my life. And so when I first started at the store, we did carry rackets and we restrung them and all that. But tennis is kind of took a nosedive in this country. So we got out of that, and we bobbed and weaved for 130 some years, and that's what you got to do. You got to go where what people want.
Sure.
And that's what we did as a merchant. We came here from Pennsylvania, and people needed this, so we brought it in and made it available. And that's why we've probably been here for a long time.
I think that happens in all industries. The evolution of time and people cause merchandise to change and what you carry in inventory to match what the customers are wanting. One of the areas that Chosen Payments focuses on is serving sporting goods industries, stores, and funeral related businesses. And we saw, particularly through COVID, that many families didn't want to go to the funeral home to make arrangements, but instead wanted a funeral director to come to their house, which is becoming an emerging trend. But when you're a funeral director and the only way to process credit cards is with one of those terminals on your countertop, you can't really go out and effectively collect a payment from the family home. So we have recently introduced the funeral industry into doing mobile payments so they can collect payments wherever they are. We talked a little bit about you being really involved in teams. And so is your typical customer a school district or an individual team, or who is your typical customer?
That's an interesting question because it's changed over the years. At one time, all the business was with the schools. And now that's made a shift with I guess I'll use the word travel teams, which is what it's all about, is youth sports. And when you go through hard times, the one thing people don't skimp on is their kids and their sports, because we love sports in this country. And
Yes.
yeah, and so yeah, that's what keeps us going.
All right. What would you say is the best value that you deliver to your customers?
It's a matter of having what they want when they want it. It's just timing. We're open 7 days a week. We get a lot of people in on Saturday morning that can't find the second sock on their way to their soccer game. And so they're coming in there in a hurry, and usually all dressed to the game, and we cut off the tag and out they go.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, we're here because the town, the community, they need somebody to be open 7 days a week and have the scorebook that you ran out of pages in or what have you.
That's pretty amazing. I'd say that's a great value that you deliver. Now, I know that you became a merchant of chosen payments through a trade association that you belong to. What trade association is that?
Sports
Or I
Inc.
guess it's a Sports Inc. Okay, so I don't think that's actually an association. I think that's a buying consortium.
The buying group, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you how long have you been a member of Sports Inc. and what caused you to join that group?
Well, I joined the company in 81, and probably 3 or 4 years later, we joined a buying group called Athletic Dealers of America, ADA. And it opened up our eyes to all kinds of things that we didn't know were out there. And one of the things you get from the buying group is the camaraderie of talking to somebody that's got the same situation you do, but they're 3 states away, so they're not really a competitor, and you can talk freely. But after learning a lot at ADA, Sports Inc. Approached us. They were looking for new members, and we went out and realized that this is where it's at.
Sports Inc. Has endorsed us as their credit card processor to their membership. I'm wondering what other outside of excellent buying opportunities from Sports Inc. do they offer you any other resources?
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's
Can you share with us what some of those resources are?
Well, there's a whole
Or maybe
staff
3.
that takes care of everything. They put on 2 shows a year where they put you in front of the vendors where you can, work out your, concerns over what's going on in the industry today. And they put on a great show. And it moves around the country, which is nice. Excuse me.
Great ringtone, by the way.
Yeah, that's a blues. I love the blues. That's a 3-2-1-1-3-2 scale. Anyway, sorry.
That's okay. So some of the resources.
Yeah, I should use them more than I do. One of our problems is we're short on help, like everybody else in the country. After the pandemic, It's hard to find help, and in our industry, because we deal with teams, you hardly ever get an easy question like what time do you close. It's and so there's a lot of research that goes on, and the stuff that we sell changes so fast that you have to keep up on what the latest greatest stuff is when you're telling your customer. So again, they've got lots of resources that I don't even have time to learn about, but it's a great organization. We would be looking for them.
Would you say one of the most beneficial resources they provide is the gift of time that they?
Yes, and because of centralized billing, that saves a huge amount of time. We give them money twice a month, and poof, most of our invoices are taken care of, and that is an enormous time saver.
All right. So we're just coming out of a pandemic, and COVID made people do a lot of crazy things and change their lifestyles in many different ways. I myself took up bird watching, which I would have never imagined in my 30s that I would ever be interested in birds. But now I have hummingbird feeders and bird feeders in my yard. Did you see an increase in people engaging in sporting activities? Did you see an increase in business, about the same, or did it fall off?
The sports that we excel in are baseball and softball, and that's pretty constant. That's the one. It's a great movie, and when James Earl Ray says the one constant in life, Ray, is baseball. But the outdoor sports really did. Fishing, canoeing, hiking, all of the. But we're not into that. Although our buying group has an outdoor side. That does hunting, fishing, and all that, and that side was doing quite well during the pandemic. We were actually in Illinois. We were closed for 2 months. We were closed for.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we were closed for April and May, which are the second and third best months of the year for us. So that was tough. But
well, yeah, I would say this: it's a good testament to financial management that you have at your business, because a lot of businesses couldn't sustain being closed for 2 months in a row. And I know that the pandemic really took a toll on many of our merchants that were in the restaurant industry that weren't set up to do curbside delivery or, Uber Eats or anything like that. So consequently, their dining rooms were closed and they weren't making any money at all. But yet you still have the expense of a telephone bill, the air conditioning, keeping your product cold in the refrigerator and all that with zero revenue. And it makes it tough. So my hat's off to those people who financially prepared for these rainy days and were able to survive. So I'm assuming that we probably have other sports dealers who will be interested in watching this. Can you share with us any feelings you have about Chosen Payments and our relationship with you?
Well, I don't have to think about it or do anything about it, which means everything's going smooth. I don't know much about it, and Marty, our bookkeeper, takes care of it. And if I don't hear anything, then you're doing a great job.
I like that. I often say that myself. We're kind of like a utility, and as long as you flick the switch and the lights come on, everything's good.
Yeah, no news is
All
good
right.
news.
Anything else you'd like to share, Pete, before we wrap this up?
Oh, not really, other than keep playing sports and keep the parents away so the kids can have fun.
All right, that sounds good. We've been talking with Peter Reed, owner of Reed's Sporting Goods in Bloomington, Illinois. Pete, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your valuable information. And we appreciate all of you taking the time to join us on this episode of The Chosen Scoop. And we'll see you again in the very near future. Thanks for joining.
Thanks.